This week we sit down with Justin Dobbs, a man behind the scenes a lot of the time, but an integral part of Appian Media. He's a writer and soon to be hosting a podcast of his own on Appian Media's channel. Our conversation with Justin Dobbs coming up next. The inRoads podcast is sponsored by One Boat Rescue Boats. They make fire boats, rescue boats, and other watercraft for those who protect and serve. They're an awesome company, and we're really glad to have them. We're going to tell you more about One Boat later in the show. If you want to see more of their boats, visit their website at theoneboat.com/inroads. Welcome to inRoads, where we talk about the why of Appian Media and how you can use the technology of today to spread the timeless message of the Bible. You can learn more about us and watch our free video series at appianmedia.org/inroads. So Justin is here with us in the studio, and that's pretty cool. I've known this guy for a little while, but I don't think our audience knows him as well. Yeah. So he's the newest member of our team. He's been around, however, since almost the beginning, helping in different ways. He's a writer and a researcher, but his day job, he's an evangelist. He's a teacher and a preacher of the gospel at a local congregation here in Indiana. So for those who don't know you, Justin, briefly tell us a little bit about yourself and about your work.
Yeah, sure. So, like you said, I'm here local in Indiana. I was born and raised in Alabama. Actually, a lot of people I meet don't know that. They're like, "Where's your accent?" Fun story. I was in Boston. We used to live in Boston, Massachusetts, and a lady thought I was French Canadian of all places. Which would be cool, but
that is kind of cool. Yeah,
I'm not French Canadian. But grew up on a cattle farm. Went to school. I'm an English language arts major, so technically I'm supposed to be an English teacher. But at the time I was going through school, I had a lot of opportunities to preach and teach, and God just provided opportunities for me to start doing that full time, and got doing that. Met your sister, now my wife.
So for those who can't see you, he's talking to me, my sister.
Right. Yeah. Sorry. Yes. I'm just talking to Craig here. Yeah.
That's good clarification.
So I got the only D-Hut girl that was available. I met her before I met the rest of the family. Married her anyway, and we've had fun ever since. But in the meantime, yeah, I've been busy with evangelism, and teaching is really just a passion of mine. I love the learning process, the teaching process, getting to see light bulb moments in people's eyes, and seeing them grow personally, and how that information comes into contact with their everyday life. That's a beautiful thing to behold for me. So that's kind of my background. We do live in Indiana now. We used to live in Alabama, in Tennessee, Boston, Massachusetts. We were there for about 6 years, and we've been here for about 3 years now, and have been working with Appian Media for a little while. But I'm excited about some of the things coming up down the pipeline.
So talk to us a little bit about your path in being involved with Appian Media. What was it that attracted you to the mission? Because I know it was not just because your brother-in-law asked a favor of you. What is it about this that made you want to be a part of it?
Okay, so actually that's not true. The truth is, that at first what really got me excited about the project was just that Craig was so stinking excited about this project. When Craig gets passionate and excited about something, it's just about all he wants to talk about. And that's fine, because I was excited about the same thing. It's a Bible study, right? And it's about equipping people, helping people to see the gospel more clearly. So that's what really got me first interested in all of this. And then getting on board, at first it was just being able to, like you said, harness media. You've said that before so many times. Here are the tools of today. People are using this all the time. And I know that's been a goal of yours for a very, very long time, Craig. Even like since before I even met you, you were going to school, trying to gain some of these skills that you use all the time now. And your thought, I think, was people in the world are using these things for really worldly things. Couldn't we use this to display the most beautiful message, the most powerful message there is, and use the power of media for Christ? So, that's what attracted me initially, was your excitement. but then seeing how it's transformed and seeing how actually well it's done, that's exciting.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about, you've been behind the scenes with Searching for a King, and with Lessons from the Land, which is really exciting. So how do you help support the video content that Appian Media is creating?
Yeah. So the goal with the study guides, which is a lot of where I work, like you said, I'm behind the scenes, not in front of the camera. I think initially the study guides came about as almost an afterthought, because we saw the power of media and we wanted people to get on board with that. And then someone said, I don't know if it was one of you guys or if it was Jeremy, but it was like, hey, what do we want people to do with this after they've seen the videos? And so there was a rush to put the Following the Messiah study guide together, the first round for the first 5 episodes, and then more intentional as we got along and more and more. So we began to see, hey, the goal is to get people back in the Bible, and watching a video is great, but we need to add to that and develop that and give people more tools with that. So that's how the study guides function. And I wish more people knew about that, because it's not just hey, here's 20 minutes, sit down, and then I'll go about the rest of my day. But it's meant to be a springboard into deeper, more meaningful study. And the study guides really enrich that. So there's a lot of time put into both sides of this effort. And I think that's it's well worth looking into if people haven't checked out the study guides for that.
And so to follow up, how much work goes into the study guides? Because
can you calculate it?
Yeah. I mean, you think about it, and with Searching for a King and Following the Messiah, and you guys have both said it, they were kind of an afterthought.
Right.
But we didn't make them and create them. I mean, they don't look like an afterthought.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you. I'm really glad for that. Because any teaching is intentional. But it's like with any craft, it's hard to measure the kind of time that goes into it, because there's so much layering that happens over the years of studying and work teaching to know how learning actually works and how classrooms function. So if these study guides are meant to be used in a class, this is not just theoretical material. It's meant to be grabbed by any teacher and useful to them in the classroom setting. So it takes some time to think through that. There's a lot of collaboration between me and Jeremy and Barry, who helped to write the things. So I think the Searching for a King study guide probably took around hours. I probably spent 6 to 8 hours a week for about 3 or 4 months, about 4 months probably working on that. And that was just putting the study guide together, not counting all the time you spend working on those things throughout your life to get where you are. It's a lot of layering that happens.
Yeah, but it's so rich and it's so helpful to see how people have used them and to hear stories from people, especially the time that we're living in right now, where more studies are happening at home, perhaps. More studies are happening digitally across the internet. And these types of materials are so rich and so helpful. So you're not one really to toot your own horn, but I'll toot it for you. I've been able to use some of these with our local congregation, and just the wheels that you can see turning in people's heads after they've seen the visuals, and then you're asking them very specific questions from the study guides.
Right.
The applications that you and Jeremy have been able to bring out in that text is really, really helpful.
Yeah, well, it's always our goal. I mean, I think about Ezra in Ezra 7, and he talks about he set his heart to know God's law and to do it and to teach it. And so really that's our goal when we're putting this material before people, is we want people to know God's word, but then it comes from a place of, as teachers and as students, we're trying to put it into practice. And so in those classroom settings, you do want the wheels turning. You want those light bulb moments again, but you want people leaving feeling unsatisfied if they don't put it into practice. And that's really what we're hoping to achieve with these study guides.
One of the missions of Appian Media, really the mission of Appian Media, is to provide digital content, provide tools that people can use in their evangelistic efforts. What would you say are some digital tools that you have found to be helpful in your own biblical teaching. And by all means, share with us things outside of what Appian Media has produced.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What would you recommend to others to help them dig deeper into the text?
Yeah, there are a lot of really great tools out there. Appian Media is not paving the way in digital resources, but there are ways Appian Media is unique. There are some online Bible study guides and some tools like Blue Letter Bible. People aren't familiar with how to even look into some of the original languages, and Blue Letter Bibles, it's free, and you can look up a lot of commentaries on that and look into some of the original languages. By all means, be thoughtful about that. I'm not a Greek scholar, and so for me to start touting Greek is probably not the most helpful thing. But you can do your own research, and if you're thoughtful about that, you can do that really well. We've probably heard of Bible Project, and I taught the high school class this last quarter, and we weren't studying anything that the Bible Project covered specifically that I wanted to use that, but there were some themes and some subjects like the holiness of God, and they've got some great videos developing our understanding of how holy God is. And so the Bible Project has been fun. Our kids really we have 4 kids. My wife and I, Lindsay, have 4 kids, and they like the visual aspect of that.
Mm-hmm.
The Bible Project's really cool. And real quick, with any of these things, I do want to say like the typical caveats apply. You want to be careful and always square things up with the Bible. And anything, of course, that we put out there with Appian Media, we want to square things up with the Bible. We want people to square it up with the Bible. I mean, we've gotten, almost embarrassingly after the fact, the video has been produced and it's like, hey, that was actually 40 days and not 8 days or something. We've got to go back and square it up with the Bible.
Right.
Yep.
And we need to be honest with ourselves. Hey, we're fallible.
Right.
We have made some mistakes in the past and have been, quick to acknowledge those. Thankfully, they're simple things like it wasn't 8 days, it was 40 days. Hey, that Bible verse was actually the wrong verse, and we've got to swap that out. But it's good to be honest with that and really point people again and again back to the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like the ability to listen with that kind of critical eye and careful. We're always trying to get back to the Bible, and there's there's some good podcasts out there. I know. Well, we're making one right now, I think.
This is a good podcast.
This is
not going to toot my own horn,
right.
you said. But there's some really good podcasts out there. I listen to one pretty regularly called Truth and Life, and that's about counseling, biblical counseling. There are some great videos, and actually one that my kids really love has been this animated Pilgrim's Progress. Have you seen this? Really good.
Yeah.
Amos in particular, he's my 6-year-old. Like for the next week, you could tell his brain was just churning on this. And he's like, Dad, it's just like real life because and that's like temptation and Satan. And he's just like eating up the material. It really lived in his brain.
Yeah.
And like any good show, even if it's like not a good message, it's just stories capture us.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you put that story in a visually immersive media, then it just captures the imagination. And so for the next few days or weeks, you're walking through that in your head, and that's all he could think about. And when it's Pilgrim's Progress instead of like Ninjago or something like that, no offense to Legos, I want my kids thinking about those things. And so, there are great digital materials out there for us as adults, as parents, and for our kids. So, utilize those. We enjoy them, but let's use them for the glory of Christ. So find them, use them, and those are just a few of them.
So I think before we go to our break, I want to ask, what advice do you have for people who are looking to use these tools for evangelism, or maybe they're looking to make tools like this? Podcasts. People are making podcasts a lot. You see YouTube channels popping up.
Yeah.
What do you say to people who are trying to make content about the Bible and use it for evangelism?
I would say, and this is maybe just my personality, in consuming the content, I would say start slow. Find something that you like and enjoy that before you start trying to add to everything, because it can get pretty overwhelming pretty quickly. There's a lot of good material out there. And to me, it feels like if I can't enjoy it and process it, and again, the point of Bible study is to get it in traction in our everyday. And so if you've got so much Bible study material and you're not really taking time to process it, how useful is it to you really? So start slow. And as far as creating content, by all means, I've got a friend, Dan Bunting, who's doing a podcast on the Psalms, where he just reads a psalm every day and posts a few comments about it, shares a few thoughts. And so that's not super involved for him. There's some great some tools that do a lot of that editing for you. And so yeah, do create content. It's not as hard as it has to be. Like, you don't have to make it difficult. And we need more people creating good content and getting good content out there. So just start slow, and just start. I mean, somebody's got to do it.
Just get started. Well, coming up after the break, we're going to talk to Justin about his work on Appian Media's upcoming documentary, Trial and Triumph: Revelation's Churches. And we're going to hear a new podcast that he's working up in his mind that I'm really excited about this. So we're thrilled to have One Boat Rescue Boats sponsoring this week's podcast. They're based in Athens, Alabama, and they make multi-purpose rescue boats for fire departments, military use, and other public servants. Thanks to One Boat Rescue Boats for sponsoring the inRoads podcast. You can visit their website at theoneboat.com/inroads. You can also find more information about our sponsors in this episode's show notes. So Justin, Trial and Triumph, it's a series that looks at the 7 churches mentioned in Revelation chapters 2 and 3, and it goes much deeper than just a tour of the lands.
Right.
So what are you hoping viewers take away from this documentary?
Like you said, it goes deeper than Tour of the Lands. I think kind of our flagship for a while has been biblical archaeology, geography, but we really do want people to be thinking about the message of the book. I think the last few series we've done, we've looked at the life of Christ. And so, I mean, where else do you start but with Jesus? Searching for a King is such a needed message. But with this, it is, while we're looking at the book of Revelation, we're really wanting to swing away at the idea of the message of the book, which is that there are trials that come our way, and they are varied in form. It's not going to hit everybody the same way, but we are going to face trials. And what's the motivation for overcoming those things? And how do we handle those trials when they come? What's going to get us through? What does victory look like? And so we're hoping our viewers come away invigorated to be more faithful after seeing what this message was to Christians who are really not facing trials that are so different than ours today.
Mm-hmm. So why are you personally so excited about this project?
So probably 3 reasons. One is that most of the material I've seen out there for the book of Revelation, I think sadly it misses an opportunity to represent that message that we just talked about, overcoming these trials. And usually it's focused on some kind of like end times, or like, what's the beast? Who's the beast? What's the mark of the beast? And we get sort of wrapped up in like apocalyptic kind of thinking, and it loses grip on, okay, what does this do for me today? And so that's one. Second, when it comes to that message, I think about my current generation, our current generation, and I have friends and family who sadly have walked away from Christ for various reasons. This is a message we need. It's a message that my friends and my family need, and I want them. I want them to turn back from turning away from Christ, but also want to look to those who are sneaking up to that edge of failure, and how can we help bring them back and reinvigorate their faith, and help them to see that holding on to Christ is something that's worth doing. There's a real victory there, and it's a sure victory if you just hold on. So that's number 2. And finally, my kids, because I'm looking at my current generation, and I'm looking at other people's faith sort of just fraying and falling apart, and my kids see it. You know, they see me getting wrapped up in that some, and you know, why, Daddy, is that happening? And so I want them to be faithful. And so I'm thinking about how can we help as Appian Media, how can we help lay some groundwork for them, for the next generation, our children and their children. You think about my grandchildren, I'm only in my 30s, but I'm hoping that my children will have the kind of faith where they can then turn around and teach their children, here's how you be faithful. Here's why you hold on. And so I'm super excited about putting out some quality material that both, again, it immerses the audience in something they can, the blessing in Revelation is for those who hear and who read aloud and who do. And that's Revelation 1. And so we can get people to kind of see the message and then to do it. Then the next generation is going to be in good hands.
So you mentioned the impact that you hope this has on your children. Stu and I feel the same way. What we're creating at Appian Media, we have turned right around and said, I can't wait till we're done with this series because I want my kids to see it. On that idea, move to your podcast idea that you're developing, and you can share as much or as little as you'd like, but tell us about what it is that you'd like to create and why it's so important to you.
Yeah, that's hard to wrap my mind around. So growing up, I was raised being taught the gospel, but my parents did the best they knew how to do, but my parents didn't sit down and have like family devotions with us. We prayed at meal times, and we went to church assemblies and Bible studies regularly, faithfully, but I didn't get the kind of teaching at home that as Lindsay and I got married, I thought, I'm responsible for that. Ephesians 6 gives a clear call to fathers. You're to bring your children up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. So that's not up to the elders and the deacons and the Bible class teachers, the evangelists. That's up to me. So how do I do that? And when we started off like day one. I remember sitting down, and Elijah was like just a couple months old. This vivid memory of him sitting in Lindsay's arms crying while I'm reading a chapter of Luke at a time. And the goal was just to let him get through it. I did not do family devotions very well back then. But you start and you try to get through it, and you again try to have those light bulb moments where you see your kids like they're with you, and they see it, and they see that this is important to mom, this is important to dad, and we bring our prayers before a God who's very real, a God who has a history with his people. And so I wanted them to see that. Now, as we grew as a family in doing that, I began to see that other families didn't have that same experience around me. They had an experience similar to mine growing up. So they didn't know how to do family devotions. They didn't know what that looked like. Like, what do you mean family devotions? When do you do that? How long do you do that? Are you preaching a sermon every time? And they had no clue. And there's not a right way to do it. But with this podcast, what I'm hoping to do is to show here's one way you can talk with your kids at various age levels. We'll be pulling in each of my children, Lord willing, and I've got a 4-year-old, a 6-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 10-year-old. And so you'll kind of see how to talk to different levels about some of the same material using just the Bible. Like, you don't have to have a lot of technique or tools. You just have God's word and a mom and a dad and a child, and that's magic. That's what God does in families. And I want families to enjoy that, and I want children to enjoy that, and to build those relationships where they know who to go to with their questions, with their doubts, with their fears and their concerns. And it builds the kind of involvement between parent and child where when everyday scenarios come up outside of family devotion time, they've got a framework to build into. So that's this podcast is not a substitution for family devotions, but it's sort of a seed. And if it can get planted in families where families imitate and develop and go further and do better and do more than what we're doing in our homes, but God needs to be in our homes and in our families. That's where the work is happening right there.
And you talk about how you started really young with your children with family devotionals. What is it about having these daily devotionals that you think is so important for parents and then give some advice to parents who are looking to try and start a devotional. I know this is probably going into part of what your podcast will be about, but we'd love to hear that.
Yeah. So first, Luke writes really long chapters. Like, I don't know if he knew that at the time when he was writing it, but
this is going to be a nice long one.
It's going to be a good long chapter here, 70 verses. But so I was talking with a father just recently. He's like, so here's what my family devotions look like. And he was talking about 20 minutes of this and 10 minutes of this and 10 more minutes of this. And he has kids who are like 4 and 6. And I thought, wow, he's like, and it's not going very well. Why not? And I said, well, I think maybe you're trying to do too much. And I love that we're ambitious and I love that we want to do a lot. But my advice in getting started is your goal is not to get through a material with your child. Your goal is to connect the material to your child. And so however long you have their attention, you're the parent, you know your child, read your child and fall into a comfortable groove with them. And you'll watch that comfort grow and develop over time. In fact, you'll have to get to the point at some age where you say, all right, we've got to stop. We've gone on for long enough.
Wow, yeah.
We've got to stop. And that's encouraging. It means maybe you start devotion time a little earlier so you make bedtime, but just start small and do something. And the encouragement that I want to give parents today is that at some point, if you're not doing family devotions, as you start them and you develop them and you're faithful in doing them regularly, you'll get to the point where you can't imagine not doing them. Mm-hmm. You'll get to the point where it's just such a part of your family's makeup. Like our family devotions are our favorite time of the day. And I know that probably for some parents out there, they're like, are you kidding me? It's like pulling teeth. Well, yeah, there are days where it's like, okay, tonight we're going to read a short psalm. I'm going to say like 30 seconds worth and we're going to say a prayer and send you to bed. Mm-hmm. And that's because I've read my kids. It's been a long day and we're sick and we're tired. But tomorrow we're coming back with double efforts and we're doing something different. But still, even then, I can't imagine not having that moment to stop and recenter ourselves spiritually, because that's who we are. Mm-hmm. We're not just an American family. We're not just a family in the Midwest functioning day to day. We're God's children. And so start small. And think long term. What are the benefits of doing this long term? And you're growing a soul with God's grace at work. So tips, again, you don't need a lot of tools. You don't need a lot of technique. Pick your favorite Bible book. And if you don't have a favorite Bible book, get one. It probably says more about personal devotions than anything. But get your favorite Bible book out and read a section of it, a paragraph at a time. Not a whole chapter, but a paragraph at a time. And just share what's powerful to you. Because if it's powerful to you, it will be powerful to your kids. And make it something that you enjoy, that you look forward to, and they'll enjoy it, and they'll look forward to it because it's important to you. I can't stress enough how lovely that time can be for a family.
Mm-hmm. Well, I hope it's obvious to our listeners why Justin's contributions here to Appian Media are so appreciated and helpful to what we're doing. So we're really glad that we could have a conversation and share it with our listeners. Thank you, Justin, for not just today, but the work that you're doing and getting ready to do. We've, Lord willing, got quite a bit ahead of us planned. And if he allows, we're excited to see what you're able to kind of keep doing for us.
Thanks for letting me be along for the ride. Yeah.
Well, this has been inRoads, and this is a production of Appian Media. We're a nonprofit video production company that is 100% crowdfunded. So if you're interested in learning more about how you can support Appian Media so we can continue to create more great free content, you can visit us at appianmedia.org. Next time, we'll talk with Brett Varvel. He's a director, writer, and actor who has created several scripted films with his production company, House of Grace Films, and you're going to really appreciate his story.